Alright, all y'all tired gamers, dads especially. This is Nioh 3. From first steps to endgame, let's see if it's worth your limited gaming time through my adult bandwidth review. Because when you finally think you've got some downtime, life tends to happen anyway, leaving you low on time and energy. So let's jump right in, starting with what's the appeal. To start, it's a satisfying journey from underdog to mastery. As you overcome growing challenges, you can genuinely feel yourself improving, not just your character. Things that once felt impossible become manageable, and how far beyond that you go depends largely on you as the player. The combat is easily the star of the show. It's faster and more mechanically demanding than most Souls-likes, with plenty of room to experiment too. You can stick to a handful of moves and do just fine, or become a deflecting combo master, if you got the time. Because for better or worse, Nioh 3 has some real heft to both its systems and its content. Despite its reputation for being demanding, Nioh 3 does more than any previous entry to make that journey easier to get into without sacrificing the depth that makes it rewarding. The catch is that Nioh 3 doesn't always do the best job explaining how all those systems fit together, which can make things feel overwhelming when you're first getting started. So what's the core experience like? Well, at its core, Nioh 3 is a fast-paced action RPG built around exploration, combat, character progression, and experimentation. You'll spend most of your time on large maps, fighting both human enemies and yokai, discovering quests, collecting gear, and experimenting with different weapons, abilities, and builds. Nioh 3 also introduces two combat styles that can be swapped between on the fly. Samurai, which focuses on power, and Ninja, which focuses on speed, mobility, and tools. The combat delivers a feeling similar to overcoming a difficult obstacle in Dark Souls, except everything happens at a much faster pace. Bosses can be brutal, but one of Nioh 3's greatest strengths is that it rarely expects players to solve a problem the same way. Whether your answer is 2 plus 2 or 0 plus 4, you're still getting 4. You'll create your own character and step into the role of Takachio, following their journey through a world of yokai, war, and political ambition as they're repeatedly challenged to answer one question.
What makes a shogun anyway?
And honestly, it's a decent story, but I treat it more like a seasoning than the main dish. There's also a surprising amount of optional content scattered throughout the world, so players who stick strictly to the main story will miss a fair bit of what Nioh 3 has to offer. And for us tired gamers, that's where things start to get a little more complicated. So, how well does this handle life interruptions? Surprisingly, Nioh 3 actually handles life interruptions pretty well. For some reason, a lot of reviews seem to get this wrong, but Nioh 3 does have a pause feature. It's just hidden behind a few menu inputs instead of a single button press. So, it's not an instant pause. If the kids suddenly start screaming their heads off, you'll probably want to create a little breathing room if you're trying to pause first. If you die because life happened, it's usually not a huge deal, thankfully. Shrines are generally well spaced, boss runbacks tend to be short, and the game autosaves constantly, so you're rarely losing more than a few minutes of progress. This is also surprisingly easy to come back to after a break. You might need a few minutes to shake off the rust, but much like riding a bike, it comes back pretty quickly. If you're going to play this where little ones might see, there is still plenty of blood and violence throughout the adventure. If you care about ratings, it's rated M. So this will be up to your discretion. We typically keep this one for after bedtime. But how well does Nioh 3 respect your time? For most players, Nioh 3 will probably last somewhere around 50 and 80 hours depending on your skill level and how much optional content you choose to engage with. Thanks to its semi-open world structure and frequent saving, you can play for 20 minutes or lose an entire evening to it if you want, especially if a boss is reminding you that confidence and competence are not the same thing. There is a good amount of side content scattered across every map, but thankfully, it's finite, with most of it rewarding some form of permanent progression. I found those rewards useful early on, but once my build came together, I was more interested in progressing the story, which also unlocks better gear and tougher challenges. At that point, another +1 to a stat simply wasn't making much of a difference anymore. One thing I do appreciate is how easy it is to experiment here. You're free to respec your stats, making it easy to change weapons, adjust your build, or completely change direction. That said, actually mastering a new weapon and piecing together a fresh build can still take time. So I'd recommend settling on a favorite weapon pair early, unless you're comfortable rebuilding parts of your character later on. You'll also be dealing with a lot of damn loot. Emphasis on a lot. Learning the filtering tools and developing your own system for managing gear will save you a ton of time. If you're just looking to run straight through the story, expect your experience to be much shorter and possibly more challenging. If you're chasing optimized builds and everything Nioh 3 has to offer, expect some grinding and RNG. The grind eventually becomes more controlled through crafting and gear customization, but at the end of the day, you're still grinding for something. Gear, materials, money, something. But at the end of a long day, how demanding is this actually going to be for you? Well, it's a fast-paced Souls-like, so I think that already sets the baseline expectation. What surprised me is that Nioh 3's biggest challenge isn't always mechanical skill, it's understanding all the systems it has. Unfortunately, it still does a piss-poor job explaining many of its mechanics and often feels like it expects you to already know what these stats and systems mean. Build complexity is still very much alive here, especially with the samurai and ninja styles. Each style and weapon has its own skill tree. Combined with their separate equipment and unique playstyles, trying to do more than just mess around with a new weapon often feels more like picking a new Smash Bros. Character. Thankfully, you don't need to master everything. After hours of trial and error, I eventually pieced together a build that completely changed how the game felt. Not because it hit particularly hard, but because I almost never needed to heal anymore. And I've seen some of the builds y'all have put together online, I wasn't even close to the ceiling. Now, don't get me wrong, the mechanical challenge is absolutely real, but it's also one of those games where some lunatic on YouTube can beat the entire thing naked with a wooden stick and never get hit. If you got the skill, you can make just about anything work. For the rest of us humans though, builds help a lot. If you choose Jolly Cooperation, co-op can take a lot of the edge off. Nioh 3's Expedition mode allows up to 2 players to help you through most of the journey if you'd rather tackle it with friends or random players, which can honestly make it more fun. So, will it keep you coming back though? If you want to keep chasing the feeling of conquering difficult enemies, Nioh 3 absolutely has a postgame for you. Finishing the game unlocks Shogun's Journey, a harder version of the adventure with stronger enemies, different placements, higher gear levels, access to rarer equipment, and additional layers of build optimization. The nice thing here is that you can speed through the major objectives to progress fairly quickly. Whether that's enough to keep you coming back depends entirely on the type of player you are. The focus here is tackling harder versions of the game's challenges while chasing those perfectly rolled pieces of gear that always just seems one drop away. Now, if this were 20-year-old me, that probably would have been awesome. I'd have happily spent much more time chasing the thrill of those god rolls. These days though, I'd rather be playing a new game or winding down with my family. The good news is that Nioh 3 never felt like it required me to keep coming back. I walked away feeling satisfied long before I had exhausted everything the game had to offer. That said, I still hop on every now and then, especially to help a buddy out. So, is this actually worth your adult bandwidth? Appeal-wise, few games make the journey from beginner to mastery feel this rewarding. Just know there's a lot to learn and that can feel overwhelming at first. Core-wise, the combat is fantastic, deep builds stay interesting, and victories feel earned. Just be aware that players who stick strictly to the main story will miss a fair bit of what Nioh 3 has to offer. For life interruptions, Nioh 3 handles unexpected interruptions surprisingly well. Between frequent saves and a real pause feature, stepping away is usually painless, though that pause isn't instant and can still get you killed if you're not careful. Time-wise, Nioh 3 gives players a surprising amount of control over how much of the experience they want to engage with. Optional side content often rewards permanent progression and generally feels worthwhile. Sessions stay flexible, but finishing Nioh 3 is still a long-term commitment that eventually gets grindier. Demand-wise, Nioh 3 rewards players who enjoy learning and experimenting. Just be prepared to do a lot of that learning yourself or use a guide. For replayability, Shogun's Journey gives players a harder version of the adventure alongside a deeper gear chase. Whether that's enough to keep you coming back depends largely on how much you enjoy chasing those perfect rolls. So, where did I land? I think Nioh 3 is absolutely worth your adult bandwidth, but only if you have the time, patience, and willingness to take failure on the chin. For me, this has become one of the rare long games I actually finished instead of drifting away from halfway through, and that alone says a lot. Alright y'all, if this helped you and you would like to support the channel while seeing more reviews like this, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'm split, and I'm splitting. See y'all next time.